like you know up in here.
Oh man, if Kurt Franklin can do it, so can I. I love Kurt Franklin. That is great music, very inspirational. Thank you for staying with us. You were listening to Rachelle Wilson here at WHGE 95.3 FM, and I am here for the Political Power Hour so that we can get to know the candidates. Of course, the entire month of September, I am highlighting powerful and strong women who are succeeding in a man's world and what that looks like. So joining me now, and I thank you for being here, is Miss Velda Jones Potter, running for the seat for the city of Wilmington's mayor here in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you for being here, Mrs. Potter.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, it's absolutely a pleasure. So let's get right down to the crux of it. You are a Wilmingtonian. You were born here?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't born here. I moved here. My family moved here when I was 2 years old from West Virginia.
Okay.
But essentially, you might as well say I was born here.
All right. And so what's life? What is life like here? You've been involved in all sorts of various different things. I know you were treasurer for a while. You're a strong, beautiful Black woman. What is it like? What has it been like? What are some of the obstacles that you have to face on a day-to-day basis in a man's world?
Well, you know, all of my career, I have been in predominantly male fields. I have an undergraduate degree in civil engineering, and I was the first African-American woman to receive an engineering degree from the University of Delaware. So that was blazing a trail in a man's world when I did it.
Yes.
And so my entire career has been navigating and succeeding in male-dominated fields, from engineering to finance, because it's only been in recent years that women have been in leadership roles in the financial world. And then now I say more recently, but I've had a couple of stints in government and in public service as state treasurer, and now in the last 4 years as city treasurer. And certainly in this arena, in the world of elected office in public service, women are grossly underrepresented. And it comes with all the challenges that we as women face in some cases being taken seriously, or not being taken seriously, not always given the respect for the professional capability that we have, and just a whole host of isms, sexism, in my case, being an African-American woman, racism, and so it has presented its challenges, but I have faced them the way I face everything, yes. Which is I have a seat at the table, and I insist that my seat at the table is respected for the seat that it is.
Now, one of the things that I just had Kira Hoffner here, and she's running for Senate, and one of the things that she advised our young little girls listening is, if you don't have a seat at the table, create your own table. And so my question would then be to you, how did you create those seats at those tables for yourself?
Well, I stepped up to and tackled the barriers that existed to having a seat at the table. I would say the tables that I sat at were arenas that essentially were already in place, but women just were not there. Wow. And so academically, I faced the challenge and conquered it in meeting the academic requirements to become an engineer, yes. And getting my master's degree in finance, so that I almost made it impossible for anyone who wasn't going to allow me a seat at the table, I made it very, very difficult for them
to ignore
me.
Yes.
Because I ensured I had the credentials and I had the work product and the results to back it up.
All right.
And so it just made it very difficult then to be overlooked and to be denied the seat at the table.
Yes.
Now, once you get that seat,
yes,
women are still faced with the hurdles that are put in front of us, as we are trying to do our job and do our work, and many times the expectation that you're just not to be taken as seriously. And it's
why do you think that they do that? Why do men who sit in these suits at the table, why do they think that we are not, why don't they take us seriously?
Well,
I'm sure there's a host of answers for that.
Probably a host of answers. I think in many ways it's a combination of just sort of indoctrination. It may be who they're accustomed to interacting with as women in their personal lives.
Okay.
So, and I'm just speculating here. It may be that their wives or their daughters or their mother, I don't know, may not have been strong female figures, potentially, and so they're not accustomed to women being in charge, taking control, managing things, and giving them the respect as they do that.
I have found as a woman myself, forging forward in the world of advocacy and radio journalism, that I've had my fair share of boxing matches with men, and most of it comes from me just being that strong woman. Like, I'm not going to let you talk down at me. I'm not going to let you overtalk me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let you say disrespectful things. And just that alone can make them feel almost fight or flight.
Right.
Like, I either need to fight you, the man is thinking, I either need to fight you and wrestle you down to the ground, or I just need to get away from you. I've literally had men in rooms walk the other direction because they saw me walk in the front door.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I don't want this woman anywhere near me,
right.
Yeah. And so do you think we'll ever get past any of that? The more women that get involved, can we get past it?
I believe we will. I mean, yes, I say we will, because again, as I look back over my career, certainly in the field of engineering, it's very different today than it was when I was navigating that arena. And so the change is very slow. And those of us who are on the cutting edge of that change, we bear the scars and we shoulder, the difficulties and the pain of it.
Yes.
But as we do that, we create a pathway for other women and girls to come behind us.
Yes.
And each time I believe it gets just a bit better.
Yes.
And that's why I continue to do what I do and not allow those hurdles to define me and box me in and limit me.
Oh, I love that. You don't let them define you. Like, that's I love that. That's powerful. Something very similar to that, City Council President Hanifa Shabazz said something very similar to what you just said. We are strong and we are beautiful, and hear us roar. Like, we're going to break down those walls and we're going to forge those paths and make it a little bit better for the women that come behind us.
Absolutely.
So at first I thought that you were the first female Black woman to run for the seat of mayor, and then the station manager, Harmon Carey, corrected me and said that you're the second woman to do that. And so what does that feel like? You are running against a white man, okay,
yes,
for the city of Wilmington mayoral seat. What does that look like for you?
For me, it looks and it feels very natural.
Okay.
It doesn't feel to me the least bit out of sorts or odd, because when I look around this city and I see the demographics of this city, When I noted the voting population is majority women, and when I see that the population itself is 58% African American and 70% people of color, it to me the opposite is the question. Why is this city that's so rich in African and Latino and cultures of color, why is it not being led? And where women are so prominent, not only in the voting population, but in so much of the leadership around advocacy and service and volunteerism. So for me, it's like, yeah, we ought to have a woman running this city. It's long overdue.
Now, okay, so I mean, I'm not going to say I agree or disagree. As a journalist, I have to keep my personal viewpoints somewhat to myself, but I can say, stating the facts. So we know that Mayor Michael Przicki created 7,000 jobs over at the riverfront and some beautification at the downtown Wilmington and some other, host of other things that he's been doing. What are you going to do to top that?
Well, while those things have been being done, there have been a multitude of people and communities that have been neglected and left out of the success and the forward motion of this city. And so I have a philosophy, too, actually. One is that it's not just about what we do, but it's equally important how we do it. And so the how in that is, are we advancing the city in a way that's giving access and opportunity to people all across this city? Or are we has this administration led the city in a way that there's been some progress in some areas, but in many ways to the neglect of neighborhoods and people all across the city? And we see that imbalance in the crime and in the dilapidation of housing and in the unclean and unkeptness of our neighborhoods. And in many ways, the hopelessness that we see playing out as our young people feel they have no purpose worth really living for. And then the second philosophy that I have is that our entire city is no stronger than its weakest neighborhood.
That's an African proverb.
Right.
Yes.
So until we begin to strengthen those parts of our community that are struggling the most, that have been left the furthest behind, then we're not the strongest city we can be. And so what I will be doing is ensuring that across all our communities, we shift a focus from infrastructure and property to people. And that, how does that look? That looks like helping people individually get homes and live in those homes. They can afford them. There just hasn't been enough of an effort and creative ways to allow them to have that success. It looks like intervening with this crime situation that we have in a way that acknowledges the communities where it's happening, where the culture there is such that we've got to begin to address the education needs in those communities, the mental health challenges, the trauma that has been created over these number of years of crime, and the social services. So we've got to bring all that to bear in those communities, so that we can begin to help shift the mindsets and create an environment where young people are proud of where they're living, where they see a future and an opportunity, and where they are indeed a part of it. And so that is where my focus will be. And I believe as a result, we will see people all across this city seizing opportunity, and together this whole city will rise.
Wow. Wow. So, education is very important. And when we look at education and our young people and COVID-19, we're doing the virtual learning thing. People are getting prepared to send their kids back to school, but in the living room. School will now be in the living room or the kitchen or wherever the laptop is. Mm-hmm. And you and I both know that not every home in America, not every home in the state of Delaware or in the city of Wilmington has a conducive learning environment. There are some children who will just get lost in that. What are we going to do about them and their education?
Well, I think it is absolutely critical that the city leadership takes a more active role engaging with the state around what our children's academic experience is. Far too long, we've just abdicated that to the state and said, well, the state controls education. We have got to have more local control here in Wilmington of our children. This is an urban environment, and some of the resources that children outside of an urban environment, some of the challenges that children in this environment face that aren't faced by children outside of this environment, we've got to make sure that our children are met exactly where they are.
Yes.
And that they are provided with the resources. Every child needs a access to the technology, a laptop, Wi-Fi. And where families are not able to provide that, it is essential that we as a city and a state make sure that that's available. We've got to engage our not only our schools, but our churches, our nonprofit organizations. We've got all sorts of resources available here, and now, like never before, we've got to bring those to bear to create ways for those children whose homes are not conducive to have an outlet.
Well, that was my thinking. For the home, that we know that there are things going on inside the home outside of the Wi-Fi. I'm not just talking about Wi-Fi. I'm talking about the environment is maybe even dangerous for children to be there for any extended periods of time. They can't think. It's a lot of noise going on. Can we find a safe haven, a community center, a church that will open its doors and let them sit 6 feet apart so they can maybe just quietly sit on the laptop and learn how to do math?
Yes, I believe not only can we, but I believe we must.
Yes.
For those children who need that, absolutely, because of the environment that they're in. But then also for those children who may not need it for that reason, but socializing is still such an essential part of the development of a young person.
Yes.
And so we've got to expand the physical resources that are available to us beyond just the school buildings, to include those other physical structures. And we've got lots of them, frankly, including we've got a lot of empty office space going on now. So those are all the challenges and the ways that I believe we have got to reimagine how we educate our children, and including and especially early child care.
Yes.
Because even as we begin to reopen more, and parents are confronted with the need to return to work more outside of their home, they have got to rely on having a safe place and healthy environment for their infants and for their toddlers and for those that aren't even school age. So this is one of our most significant challenges, and let's just be real about it. The lion's share of the burden of that falls on women.
Yes. Mom
So,
and grandma,
yes.
always on our shoulders.
Exactly.
Half of our men are incarcerated,
Yes.
and so we're left raising babies and grandbabies.
Yep.
The other half, some of them have mental issues, and God only knows what else is going on. 2, 3, 4, 10 women,
Right.
you know. And so, yeah, again, I mean, I'm an absolute advocate. I'm a supporter for women.
Yes.
And I support strong women such as yourself. Like, I love your energy. I absolutely love your energy. So, you know, and advocating for children is very important to me. So I do think that a lot of the responsibility needs to go to the churches to have safe haven places, like, and I'm calling them safe havens.
Yes.
You know, where they can really go there and learn. But the community centers, much of the crime amongst our young babies, our babies are killing each other and themselves because they have nothing to do, nowhere to go. Can we reopen the community centers?
Well, yes, I believe we have to. In fact, I will have to say some of them are open now. The Police Athletic League, the PAL Center on 37th Street is open, and they are open in a way that for the times that I've been in, and I've been in several times over these last several months, I felt very safe in entry. They on your way in, they have hand sanitizers, they have masks, they take the temperature for everyone who's coming in.
Good.
And they have modified their programming so that the facility allows for social distancing and space as people are in there. So, you know, I believe other centers need to begin to do more of that. And there are some areas,
perhaps more programs centered on our children to stop some of the violence.
Yes.
You know, when people talk about our kids killing each other, you know, they just think about the kids killing each other.
Right.
There's always a backstory. There's always a reason.
And it's that backstory that, and it's those reasons, it's those root causes that we've got to address.
Yes.
And that's what hasn't been being addressed. We've got to begin to reach them and with those areas of focus. And so places like People's Settlement in this very community is so under-resourced.
I didn't even know People's Settlement was still open.
I believe it has very minimal services there. And yet the community in and around People's Settlement is one of the areas where
they need it the most.
Needing it the most. And it's also a community where investment was earmarked for housing refurbishment along Bennett Street that never happened and still hasn't been accounted for. So we just can't tolerate the neglect of those communities where it's needed most. Jackson Street Boys Club, which was leveled to
heartbroken.
Completely.
I'm heartbroken.
Past there, I feel the pain of that because our children played basketball there. We sponsored teams there.
Yes.
We had young girls and boys who, through that program and the tutoring, earned scholarships to Sanford School and then went on to college. And it's going to be redoubling those kinds of effort to building economic opportunity in and around our neighborhoods. We can't just resource downtown, the central business downtown. We can't just resource the riverfront. We've got to resource the corridors along Market Street. We've got to resource the business areas up along 4th Street. And frankly, we're going to have a lot of people who are now, the home is not only going to be the new school, the new learning environment, but it's also going to continue in many ways to be the new office, the new work environment for our parents and our adults. And so we're going to need to be reimagining how all of that's going to work.
Well, one thing for certain and two things for sure, in our last few minutes of this segment, for those people, and I saw with my own two eyes, I rode past as the night was setting, and saw teenage children sleeping under the bridge or whatever it was, the overpass with their mom. And I didn't have any money on me, or I didn't have anything I could give, so I just kept going. But that really broke my heart. So if home has to be the new safe haven, what about the people that don't have homes? Can Wilmington please give these abandoned houses to these people and a little piece of change to fix it up and become homeowners? Yes. Get them off the street, and that'll cut down crime.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. And we can do that. Detroit is in many ways a model of that in terms of the progress that they've made in housing and home ownership, and creating the kind of stability that helps people, get their life on track and then move forward. Even for renters, even those who are renting, we've got to have more people who are renting are doing so as if they were owners, where the expectations of the quality of housing that they are living in is just as someone who was owning their home.
Rent to own. Can they rent to own it?
Yes, we need to give incentives for them to be stable so that they're not, it's in the 11th month of my 12-month lease, and now I'm just going to hop over to another lease for 11 months and play that game, because it is so detrimental to everyone in that household, but especially any young people who are there. And so, yes, there are ways that we can incentivize them. If you stay here for 3 straight years and you go through these program development, so, we help you understand, how do you maintain a house? Let's have you decorating and upkeeping the outside of your home. And as we see them progress through that, and they earn some equity that then they can use toward buying either that home or another home. Everybody really wants to progress. They really do at heart. They just need the kind of help that enables them to do it.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you one more question, and we'll close out with this one, unless, of course, you have any statements. I have to ask you, the judicial system, I know that that's not really a mayor's particular place or in their lane, but just from you personally, I think we started this conversation by saying, with mom and grandmom raising so many of the children, we have so many of our men massively incarcerated, which only puts more of a burden on the mom, the grandmom, and the children, not to mention the money that it takes in order to house people. What are your thoughts on changing, if you could change something in the judicial system? What would you change? Where would you start? Where would you even start with something like that?
Wow. So
yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, so many facets to that. I will say on the first of all, I really want to see us create in our young people a sense of pride, self-pride, and awareness of the institutional challenges, the institutional racism, the institutional all of those things built in the institution that are in some ways designed or intended to just sort of trap them, so that they're ready to recognize these things and have the self-confidence and the self-awareness and the self-assuredness that you get from understanding your history and your culture, and knowing that you are someone who's of value, greater value than this system often has for you. So if we begin to create that in our young people, that we once had. That's what we had when we had local schools in our neighborhoods, and the best teachers who were from Clark and from Howard and from Lincoln,
Yes.
who understood who we were and believed in us and imparted that sense of confidence and pride and self-assurance. And so you had to really come at our young people then with something really major to erode that. But they're not getting it now because they're not being nurtured in their village where they live. Nothing is telling them that you are special, that you are good just as you are, that you are valuable. And so when you don't have those positive messages offsetting so much of the negative, when they're in schools where they're sent to the basement and segregated even though they're within the school, all those signals and messages and they feel nibbled away at, all those messages are telling them that you're not
you're not
value,
good enough.
you're not good enough. So it doesn't then take much for them to succumb to those things that land them in jail. So let's begin to really, as a community, impart that. Let's interject that. Now and so I think as we do that, we'll have less and less of a pipeline. Let's get rid of these very harsh penalties for nonviolent crimes, and particularly for drug use and drug abuse.
I better not ever see anyone arrested for marijuana again. Now with all this CBD, BDB going on, how can you arrest people for marijuana?
That? And so yes, because so many of our young people, young men and young girls now who are incarcerated are for marijuana, and or they have a serious drug problem, and instead of us giving them treatment and help, we lock them up. So let's stop that pipeline, right where it is. And then on the way out, when people who have rightly or not rightly, but when they've served their time as they've been given, then let them out and let them free. Everyone who comes out of prison, almost to a person, comes out with a 5-year or longer probation. That's an extended shackle.
Yes, it is.
Intended to keep enough of a rein on them so that they will surely land back. That is unacceptable. If they've done their time, set them free. And then let's do it in a way that they get enough support and services on their way out as they re-enter the community that they can be successful. Yes. So I believe we just need such a shift to people and humanity and civility, and I believe as we do that and as we put our resources to that, we will see a difference.
Amazing. Amazing. I cannot thank you enough for doing this interview, and promise us that you'll come back after the election, and we'll talk some more and find out where you are, what position you're in, what seat you're in, and what you're going to do. If you become the mayor or if you're going to do something else, just come back and talk with us about where you're going from here. We'd like to keep up with you.
Thank you, and I so appreciate you having this talk and giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to coming back.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rachelle Wilson here at the Political Power Hour, WHGE, honoring the strong women in politics, not in politics, strong women for the entire month of September. You are listening to Velda Jones Potter, running for the mayor seat here in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. It will be your votes that put her there. Thank you so much. We are a little bit over schedule, but it was a great interview. We needed to get those questions and those answers so that you could make conscientious decisions Moving forward, September 15th is right around the corner, and we want to make sure that you are voting intelligently. Thank you for tuning in. You have been listening to Rachelle Wilson, WHGE, and I'll see you right back here on this coming Wednesday when I will have Senator Elizabeth Lockman, Tizzy Lockman, will be joining us here this coming Wednesday for the Political Power Hour, as well as my intimate and in-depth interview with Michelle Harley. So stay tuned for that, and I'll talk with you on Wednesday. Remember, until we meet again, be good to yourselves and be good to others, because karma is real. Peace and grace.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful interview.